Egypt rejects Israeli reports alleging that Cairo proposed transferring Hamas's weapons to its custody. Israel approves Gideon's Chariot 2 plan to reoccupy Gaza. And the Russian foreign minister condemns the collective punishment of Palestinians.
والله العظيم ولا حبة رز، والله العظيم ولا حبة عدس. ما فيش أكل، ما فيش شرب، عندي بنت 2.5 صارت تصدم.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has reaffirmed Cairo's firm rejection of any attempts to displace Palestinians or undermine their legitimate rights. In a phone call with his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron, they discussed efforts to secure a ceasefire in Gaza, release detainees and facilitate aid delivery. Macron praised Egypt's mediation to end the war, stressing the need for a just settlement of the Palestinian cause and rapid Gaza reconstruction. President Sisi welcomed France's plan to recognize the Palestinian state in September, calling it a milestone for justice. Egypt has dispatched its 19th aid convoy under the Zaid al-Izza Provision of Honor from Egypt to Gaza initiative from Rafah to Gaza via Kerm Abu Salim border crossing, loaded with massive food, relief and medical supplies. Organized by the Egyptian Red Crescent, the convoy reflects Cairo's firm support for Gaza under Israel's suffocating blockade. Thousands of Egyptian aid trucks remain stalled in North Sinai due to Israeli restrictions, worsening Gaza's dire crisis. Alongside these convoys, Egypt continues diplomatic efforts to secure a ceasefire and unhindered aid access. Egyptian sources have reported that Israel has not responded to the mediator's ceasefire proposal for Gaza, even after 48 hours of receiving it, despite Hamas's acceptance. The Egyptian sources added that Egypt is intensifying communications with all parties, urging Israel to engage positively with the proposal. They added that the plan, backed by American guarantees, aims for a comprehensive deal to release all the detainees. The Egyptian sources stressed that negotiations based on the Witkoff proposal are the only way to free detainees, placing Israel under real pressure to act. High-level Egyptian sources have denied Israeli media claims about an Egyptian proposal to transfer Hamas weapons to Egypt. They added that the actual proposal, jointly presented by Egypt and Qatar and accepted by Hamas, calls for a 60-day ceasefire. They added that negotiations to establish a permanent ceasefire agreement are set to begin on the first day the truce takes effect, aiming to secure lasting peace in the region. Amid rising tensions and disinformation, Egypt pushes back against Israeli allegations, stressing mediation efforts, U.S. guarantees, and a path towards a ceasefire, placing Israel before a decisive test. Cairo intensifies mediation efforts with Doha and Washington, aiming for a sustainable ceasefire, detainee release, Israeli withdrawal, and unhindered humanitarian aid to Gaza amid ongoing tensions.
Cairo, alongside Doha and Washington, continues to press Hamas and Israel back to indirect talks, with Egypt and Qatar reaffirming their commitment to intensify diplomacy and overcome obstacles. Egyptian mediation is centered on a comprehensive, sustainable ceasefire tied to the release of detainees, Israeli withdrawal, and an immediate surge of humanitarian aid into Gaza. Egypt's role goes beyond shuttle diplomacy to practical action. Cairo has stressed that aid must flow without obstruction and crossings must operate at scale, underscoring Egypt's humanitarian responsibility toward the Palestinians. Mediators, Egypt, Qatar, and the United States are coordinating closely, with Cairo leveraging its channels to both sides despite setbacks and battlefield tensions. Egypt's stated priority remains a permanent ceasefire and Gaza's reconstruction, while rejecting any arrangements that restrict Palestinian movement or block relief operations. In a significant move, Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa visited Egypt for high-level talks. He traveled with Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdel Ati to the Egyptian side of the Rafah border crossing, where they toured logistical hubs and met officials managing aid. From in front of Rafah border crossing, the Egyptian Foreign Minister stressed that Gaza must be flooded with urgent assistance without Israeli obstacles, aligning Cairo's humanitarian push with its diplomatic mediation. Egypt and its partners continue circulating proposals, pressing for a deal that couples calm with measures to ease suffering in Gaza and restore stability.
And for more analysis, we now move to Riham Morsi, who is currently in our newsroom. To you, Riham.
Thank you so much, Hala. To help us analyze the current situation, we're joined from Cairo by Al Ahram newspaper's managing editor, Ashraf Al-Ashri. Welcome, sir, to Qnews. Sir, firstly, let's start off by asking, why has Israel not yet responded to the mediator proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza, in your opinion?
They want to make sure that we cannot say for 100% that Israel refused the proposal of the intermediaries. The cabinet has not yet given an official response. The plan is known as Witkoff's plan. We will see what they will do tomorrow after the cabinet meeting concludes. Then on Thursday night or Friday in the morning, the Israeli response will reach the intermediaries. You know that Hamas approved the ceasefire plan, and they approved it to be a turning point in the negotiations.
Okay, now, sir, how do you see Israel's attempts to spread false allegations against Egypt in recent weeks? I mean, this is a tactic that they have been using for the last 2 years or so. Now, in this occurrence, why is this a tactic that they're using with Egypt?
And practices and the terrorist Muslim Brotherhood organization, they are both trying to tarnish Egypt's efforts, but Egypt's stance is well known. Israel, on the other hand, is committing a genocide, and the Egyptian leadership has a firm hand on trying to save the Palestinian people. While Israel now is cornered, so they are trying to promote fallacies and superstitions, because Cairo opposes all fallacies and all attempts that the aid is not being distributed or flowing inside Strip. No, that's not true. We're not closing the Rafah border on our side. It's open. On the Palestinian side, the Israeli army blocks it. This proves to the international community that Israel is hindering all efforts to flow the aid convoys inside Palestine. They want to use it as a cover to hide their policies and aggression by pinning it on Egypt. But this has not been successful.
Okay, now, sir, is there a possibility that the US president will pressure Israel into accepting a ceasefire agreement in Gaza?
Yes, of course. Egypt is conducting lots of communications and correspondences with lots of parties, including the United States of America. And in the coming hours, we will see if it will be fruitful, that a partial ceasefire is about to take place or not. We will see whether the United States encourages this proposal or no. It's now ball game in the United States' hands. They must put pressure on Israel. They can stop the war and the ongoing aggression. After the intermediary plan proposed by Egypt, and the detainees and a number of the detainees will be released, it will change the whole equation, and we might even reach a complete ceasefire. And you saw how Hamas accepted it.
Well, now, sir, you touched slightly on Egypt's efforts when it comes to, attempting to stop the war in Gaza. Could you elaborate on that further?
Yes, of course. The Egyptian efforts are continuous. They are essential in the passage of the convoys, the aid convoys inside Gaza. Egypt all the time performs tremendous efforts trying to put an end to the suffering of the Palestinian people. And also they are trying to cut Israel's way into performing an all-out military operation, trying to occupy the Gaza city and the Gaza Strip. Cairo want to make this Israeli plan fail. We're doing so by diplomatic and peaceful correspondences. Our stance is clear. The Egyptian plan is the most successful up until now. It is the only thing stopping an all-out military operation on Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
You know how the Israeli plans are in motion, how they want to summon some of the reserves, as you saw in the last conflict. So now we are trying to put pressure on Israel before the cabinet's meeting.
So, sir, do you think that this is a real possibility that Netanyahu will announce the start of a large-scale ground operation in Gaza?
It's a possibility, but the times or the schedule is unknown. They have already summoned tens of thousands of soldiers from the reserves. It might take a few weeks before they perform this, or even up until the first half or the first quarter of the 2026. We still have a week or 10 days where Egypt is performing tremendous efforts to stop this plan. we are trying also to give them. They have to stop all military operations throughout the negotiations, which are about to take 60 days as per the intermediary's proposal. If this plan is to succeed, the Israeli occupation will have to stop their military operation on the ground for 60 days.
Okay, sir, thank you so much for giving us the latest opinion and updates about what's happening right now. That was Ashraf Al-Ashri from Cairo, Al Ahram newspaper managing editor. Thank you so much for joining us here on Q News. And now we go back to you, Heather Hamalawi, in our studio.
Thank you so much, Riham. Resuming our bulletin, Israeli media has reported that Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz approved a plan named Gideon's Chariots 2 to reoccupy Gaza. The Israeli occupying army began calling up 60,000 reservists, raising troop numbers in Gaza from 20,000 to 130,000. The plan, endorsed earlier by the Security Cabinet, signals Israel's rejection of a ceasefire proposal. It extends active duty soldier service by 40 days and will summon more reservists in September. Israeli military chief of staff Eyal Zamir said that the plan focuses on strengthening forces in northern Gaza ahead of occupying Gaza City. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry has condemned Israel's approval of settlement construction in the E1 area, calling it a compelling reason for the international community to swiftly recognize the state of Palestine. They asserted that Israel's endorsement of E1 settlements constitutes an official acknowledgement of involvement in settlement crimes and the gradual annexation of the West Bank, intensifying violations of Palestinian rights and international law. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has condemned collective punishment of Palestinians, urged resumption of UN aid, and stressed establishing a Palestinian state per international resolutions. In a joint press conference with his Jordanian counterpart in Moscow, Lavrov said that they discussed the Middle East, focusing on Gaza's worsening humanitarian crisis. He highlighted the urgent need to address Gaza's catastrophe and Syria's stability. On Ukraine, Lavrov called for lacking root causes, especially border issues and reliable security guarantees. He noted significant growth in Russian-Jordanian cooperation, particularly in trade, emphasizing further partnership development. Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman al-Safadi has voiced support for Egyptian, Qatari and American mediation in Gaza. In a joint press conference with his Russian counterpart in Moscow, Safadi affirmed Jordan's determination to counter any Israeli actions escalating regional conflict and highlighted Jordan's intensive efforts to halt Israeli aggression in Gaza. Safadi stressed that lasting peace requires ending the Israeli occupation and establishing a Palestinian state. The Jordanian Foreign Minister accused Netanyahu of perpetuating conflict through settlement expansion and called on the world to stop Gaza's devastation. Safadi also emphasized supporting Syria's reconstruction and regional stability with Russia. Jordan's King Abdullah II has stressed the urgent need to intensify efforts to secure a ceasefire in Gaza. In a phone call with his French counterpart, President Emmanuel Macron, King Abdullah II emphasized the critical importance of ensuring sufficient humanitarian aid reaches the Gaza Strip. Jordan's king firmly rejected plans to entrench the occupation of Gaza or expand military control. He condemned unilateral actions in the West Bank and the E1 settlement plan, reaffirming that a two-state solution remains the sole path to a just and comprehensive peace in the region. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has confirmed that the United States is actively discussing a 60-day ceasefire proposal in Gaza accepted by Hamas. She linked Hamas's acceptance to U.S. President Donald Trump's recent strong statement on the conflict. Additionally, she added that the U.S. is prepared to assist in coordinating security guarantees for Ukraine, with Trump's national security team working alongside Europe. She said that, however, Trump has firmly ruled out deploying U.S. troops on Ukrainian soil, focusing instead on other support measures. The Gaza-based health authorities have announced that the death toll from Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip has climbed to over 62,100 and over 156,750 were wounded. The Gaza-based health authorities have reported that Israeli military operations in Gaza and the bombing of 8 centers had killed 22 Palestinians and injured 49 others in the past 24 hours. Moving on to Tehran, where Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has warned that if Europe activates the mechanism to restore international sanctions, it will end their role in Iran's nuclear issue. He added that Tehran has received the IAEA's response to its cooperation proposal and plans to send a delegation to Vienna soon. The Iranian Foreign Minister stressed that cooperation requires a new framework reflecting updated conditions at its nuclear sites. He added that while cooperation with the IAEA continues, decisions on inspectors' return rest with the National Security Council. Effective nuclear talks with Washington have yet to materialize. Egypt has praised U.S. President Donald Trump's efforts to end the Ukraine crisis and its devastating consequences, welcoming the recent U.S.-Russia summit in Alaska on August 15th and Trump's subsequent meeting with Ukraine's president and European leaders in Washington on August 18th. In a foreign ministry statement, Egypt reaffirmed its rejection of military solutions, stressing that only serious negotiations, political will, and respect for international law can resolve the conflict. Cairo expressed hope that these initiatives will end the conflict and ease its severe global impacts, especially on food security. Ukraine's presidency has declared that neither the U.S. nor Russia can impose terms on Kiev without the backing of the Ukrainian people. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky urged new tariffs on Russia to strengthen diplomacy, stressing that Moscow's continued strikes prove the need for tougher sanctions. He reported that Russia targeted a gas distribution station in Odessa, writing on X that such attacks highlight the urgency of intensifying pressure on Moscow and adopting stronger economic measures to make diplomacy fully effective. The Ukrainian Prime Minister has reported that at least 14 people, including a family with 3 young children, were wounded in a Russian drone attack overnight in Ukraine's northern Sumy region. The assault, involving 15 drones targeting Okterka's residential area, occurred amid U.S. President Donald Trump's efforts to end the war. The injured children were as young as 5 months. Russia denies targeting civilians or civilian infrastructure. Independent verification of the footage remains unavailable. European Council President Antonio Costa has emphasized advancing Ukraine's EU membership and ensuring Europe's role in peace talks with Ukraine, Russia, and the U.S. Reporting on the August 18th Washington summit, he called a potential Zelensky-Putin meeting enormous progress. Costa praised Washington's willingness to offer security guarantees for Ukraine as a crucial step. He stressed Ukraine's future depends on both peace and EU integration, while the bloc prepares more sanctions to pressure Russia to end the conflict.
A very welcome step.
Finland's Foreign Minister Elina Valtonen has announced that the coalition of the willing has started developing a security guarantees framework for Ukraine, though no final decisions have been made. Speaking at a press conference in Espoo with Nordic and Canadian counterparts, she emphasized ongoing efforts. Canadian Foreign Minister Anita Anand reaffirmed Canada's long-term support for Ukraine. These remarks followed a high-level White House meeting between U.S., Ukrainian, and European leaders, discussing ways to end the Ukraine-Russia conflict.
On our behalf, to the extent that we have started the work
Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico has stated that for progress in ending the conflict with Ukraine, Western nations must recognize Ukraine cannot join too. He emphasized that territorial negotiations will also be essential in resolving the conflict. Fico made these remarks following a video conference with European Union leaders, highlighting that acknowledging Ukraine's NATO exclusion is a fundamental prerequisite for peace. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here is what we have been covering. Egypt rejects Israeli reports alleging that Cairo proposed transferring Hamas's weapons to its custody. Israel approves Gideon's Chariot 2 plan to reoccupy Gaza. And the Russian foreign minister condemns the collective punishment of Palestinians. And this concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG to stay informed. My name is Halal Hamalawi. I thank you so much for being with us. Stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.